All right, perfect. I am calling this meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. We start off with a territorial acknowledgement. I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katziewt nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied territories. We're now going to move on to item 3, roll call of attendance. Starting with myself, my name is Zaid Lari, my pronouns are he, him, his, and my accessibility needs are met. Computer science, our vice chair said that he will be a couple minutes late today. Moving on to GSWS.
Hey everyone, my name's Devin, she, her, hers pronouns, and my access needs are met.
Perfect, thank you. History.
Everyone, my name's Alan. He, him, his pronouns. My access needs are met currently, though I might cut out because the Wi-Fi is spotty here.
All right, thank you. Labor studies.
Hello, my name is Justin Chen. My pronouns are he, him, his, and yeah, my Wi-Fi is a bit spotty today, so I'm just gonna turn my camera off.
All right, thank you. World literature.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Pronouns she, her, hers. And for access needs, my mom just recently came out of surgery, so I might have to go help or do something. I'm not quite sure. So, yeah.
Thank you for letting us know. And I think that concludes our roll call of attendance. Going to move on to item 4, our consent agenda here. 4.1, be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. Would anyone like to move this motion?
Devin moves. Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Devin moves.
I'm sorry. I have just one comment. I don't know what the T in my keyboard is not working, so list it will. Anyways, my name was not in the attendees from last meeting.
In the previous minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I can make a note of that. I'll tell our admin assistant to make sure that you're in there.
Thank you.
But otherwise, are we fine with adopting or approving the minutes? All right, can I get a second, please? Labor studies seconds. We're now going to move into discussion. So yeah, I'll make a note of that with the admin assistant. Are there any other comments regarding the minutes? All right, cool. We're going to seek unanimous consent on this motion. So seeking unanimous consent, if you'd like to object, please do so now. Seeing no objections, this motion has been carried unanimously with a note that we need to check. I'll get the admin assistant to make those changes there. All right, moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. 5.1, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Would anyone like to move this motion?
History moves.
History moves. Would anyone like to second?
Devin seconds.
GSWS seconds. All right, is there any discussion? Yes, Devin.
I would like to, if time, add a discussion item entitled posting of counselors' messages online. And if we have time for that today, I'd love to add that to a discussion.
All right, would anyone like to second that amendment?
Zara?
World literature seconds. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All right, I'm going to seek unanimous consent on that. Seeking unanimous consent, if you'd like to object to this amendment, please say so now. Seeing no objections, the agenda has been amended with the discussion item, posting counselor messages online. All right, so back to the main motion, which reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we're now going to move to vote. Once again, seeking unanimous consent. If you would like to object, please do so now. Seeing no objections, the motion carries as amended. All right, we're now on to item 6.1. Be it resolved to ratify the Science Counselor's resignation from OCEO chair. Be it further resolved to appoint X as chair of the OCEO for the remainder of the 2021-2022 council term. I'm going to move this myself, and would anyone like to second?
It's 3 seconds.
Sarah?
History seconds. All right, so moving into discussion, I'm just going to explain why I put this here. So for personal reasons, I'm currently reducing my extracurricular commitments, and which is why I'd like to hand the chair over to someone who can put in the time and effort to steer the committee. I'm also on a sort of unofficial leave right now, so I am trying to, I guess, make sure that things are going smoothly with the various groups I'm a part of. So with that being said, does anyone have anything they'd like to say before I call for nominations? All right. I'm now going to call for nominations 3 times. When I do call for nominations, you can unmute and either state that you're nominating yourself or somebody else. If you're nominating somebody else, I will have to ask them whether they accept the nomination, and they'll be added to the candidates list. If there's more than one candidate, we will then move to an election where each candidate will be given 1 minute to motivate for the position. All right, this is the first call for nominations. This is the second call for nominations. Devin?
Yeah, I will be happy to nominate myself. However, I wanted to see if Ryan wanted to nominate themselves first, as they are currently vice chair. But if no one else is able to do so, I am happy to take the position as well. But I just wanted to check in with Ryan as vice chair first, now that he's in the meeting.
Oh, thank you. I'm gonna have to pass, I think, on the same reasons for why I didn't take chair the first time. I don't have the time in my schedule to chair a subcommittee at the moment.
All right, thank you. I think we were on the second call for nominations there. Currently have 1 candidate, Devin. And we are now on to the third and final call for nominations. If you'd like to nominate yourself for the position, please do so now. All right, seeing that we only have 1 candidate here, I'm going to move then to amend the agenda to replace, be it further resolved to appoint X as chair of the OCEO chair for the remainder of the 2021-2022 council term, with be it further resolved to appoint Devin as chair of the OCEO for the remainder of the 2021-2022 council term. Anyone like to second this amendment?
Sarah?
I'll second.
Sarah seconds. All right, is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, then we're going to move to vote. Once again, seeking unanimous consent. If you'd like to object to this amendment, please do so now. Seeing no objections, the amendment carries. The motion now reads, be it resolved to ratify the Science Counselor's resignation from OCEO Chair. Be it further resolved to appoint Devin, put your last name in there as well, if there's no objections to that. Be it resolved to appoint Devin Butterworth as Chair of the OCEO for the remainder of the 2021/2022 council term. Is there any discussion? All right, perfect. We're going to now move to vote on the main motion as amended. Seeking unanimous consent. If you'd like to object, please do so now. Seeing no objections, the motion carries unanimously as amended. Congratulations, Devin. Thank you for stepping up to take over chair. And then if you'd like, you can take over for the rest of the meeting then today.
Sure. If you are still okay with, sorry, I'm just pulling up the agenda here, with going over 7.1, as I know that you really had a big part of crafting those policies and those standing orders. But we will move on to 7 and 7.1, which is Oversight Committee Standing Orders. That's the first discussion item. So if Zaid, if you're still okay presenting on those, if not, I can try my best, but I'm not as familiar. I'm still going through them.
Yeah, I can talk on them. Let me just scroll down to the orders there. So I sent everybody the document with all of council's policies there. For us, our committee policies are under standing orders, where is it, 17, it's on page 109. If everyone can please scroll down. So the reason I put this on the agenda was I think it'd be good for all of us to just kind of have a read through these policies. Like they don't totally map out, you know, I guess the committee like definitively, but it does kind of list out some of the powers that we are given on delegated authority, as well as our own terms of reference and composition. Should I share your screen?
That would be great if you could. I think I can as well, but if you want to, if you have it up, that works as well.
Here, let me just find that. Okay, can everybody see the document? Can I get a thumbs up? All right, perfect. So this is Standing Order 17. Our committee is called Oversight Committee on Executive Officers. We worked on this set of policy, I think, like really close to, I think, the end of the term when all of the council policies were approved by the previous board. So there wasn't a whole lot of time for you know, proper, I guess, fleshing out of the entire standing order. So these standing orders in terms of reference can be amended, you know, later on should we need to. So of course we know the composition here, at least 4 and up to 6 non-executive councillors, including the chair. I'm actually kind of curious whether that includes the vice chair in this 4 to 6. But I mean, I guess because Devin's chair now, it doesn't really matter. Anyways, moving down to our terms of reference there. So, you know, that overarching theme we have is the oversight and accountability of our executive officers, making sure that members of the executive committee are fulfilling their duties per the Societies Act, bylaws, and society policies. I think this is something we may want to do a quick read over. One of our meetings is to refresh everybody on the Societies Act, our own bylaws and the policies as they relate to the executive committee and our executive officers. So one of the first kind of, I guess, actions that we can take is investigations. So conducting investigations on any misconduct or inconsistencies in the behavior or actions of a member of the executive committee. So in doing this, we can request any kind of specific documentation from the executive committee that we need related to our investigation. So, this can be, I guess, financial records or any kinds of society documents that we may require. It does say, though, if these are confidential documents, so I'm not sure whether our financial documents are confidential. I don't believe so, but if there's anything that has to do with HR or staff, those are definitely confidential documents, which we will need to review in camera. In camera, for those of you who may not know, it's when we turn off the recording or go into a private session for just the members of this committee to speak about, discuss, or look at confidential information or documents. So that is something that we may have to do with our committee here. So these are some example documents that we can review of this from the society, and it's regarding the executive officers' duties and obligations, including the executive committee's meeting minutes, the subcommittee meeting minutes, their work reports and semester reports. These are all like accessible documents for us anyways, but it is in here that this is something that we do as part of our investigations. I already see an error here. We have 2 B's here. So one of the other interesting things that we can do is under here, it says compel members of the executive committee to provide testimony before the committee to investigate any matter. So simply put, if we have any questions for the executive committee, specifically any of the executives that we'd like an answer to, or we'd like to discuss with them, we can call them to one of our meetings and have that kind of meeting with them, whether that's a question about work reports or some situation or event that had occurred. We can call them in to come and speak with us about that, so we can get some more information on the circumstances. Interesting kind of subclause we have here is that if an executive officer does not fulfill our requests, so this is reasonable within the area of something reasonable. So we're obviously going to make the effort to try and meet with them when they're available through using Let Us Meet or something. But if they flat out do refuse to meet with us, and it's something where they're basically avoiding the investigation there, then we may pass a resolution there to reduce the executive officer's stipend, or recommend the council pass a censure resolution at a meeting of council. Regarding the stipend, this is the next piece. I'll leave that for discussion there. I think it's down. Yeah, okay, that's the next part. So regarding censure, essentially censure is like a reprimand. So when you pass censure at a meeting, you are reprimanding a member for essentially for not fulfilling their duties. It's like giving somebody a strike, right? And if there are multiple censures that have been passed against somebody, then that does give credence to removing them from their position. So it's like somewhat like a warning. I guess I hope that makes sense. I mean, I've never seen a censure passed before, but I'm guessing it may have happened in the past. But this is something that we can look into. So on to part C. On delegated authority, we're able to pass a resolution to enact a reduction of the stipend of an executive officer for any of the following reasons. So by delegated authority, it's authority that's given to this committee by the executive committee, specifically the VP Finance, the authority given to this committee to specifically the chair to speak with the finance coordinator to enact any kinds of stipend reductions that we have passed via a resolution. So some of the reasons or the circumstances under which we can pass a resolution for stipend reduction is first of all, consistently not fulfilling the requirements of the powers, duties, and obligations assigned to their portfolio. You're going to notice that some of these are a bit vague, which is really up to, I guess, us in our interpretation there. All of this is going to require documentation, and yeah, there's going to require documentation. We have to have, an actual argument for why we're doing something in proof, because there is the possibility, as we'll see later down, for the executive officer to go to council to appeal. So for item 2, we have consistently not fulfilling the hours required of executive officers under R3. R3 says the 60 hours biweekly is the expected hours for executive officers. Again, it's up to us to collect the evidence there and define what consistently not fulfilling the hours means, and back it up with evidence there as well. Part 3 is what we discussed earlier regarding testimony. So if they refuse to meet with us and answer our questions, and that is a reason that we can go ahead and enact that kind of resolution with, within reason. And number 4, which was an interesting part, Gabe and I discussed this regarding VP finances, which may feel pressured by the rest of the executive committee to not enact, stipend reductions that are supposed to be done. If the VP finance is unwilling to or unable to enact a stipend reduction for another executive officer for not completing their semi-monthly work reports, semester reports, or exit reports according to the established timelines, which you can see in the rest of our policies. If you go above, I can't name the one off the top of my head, but there are specific stipend reductions set out for the different reports and how late you are with them. So there are timelines that are set out, and it's basically up to us to make sure that these are being enforced. And we also have D, which was the censure resolution, which is again kind of like a strike against somebody or reprimand. And then E is the recommendation we may pass to council for the initiations of an impeachment of an executive officer after an exhaustive investigation concludes on gross allegations of harassment, ethics violations, theft, or any egregious actions taken by the executive officer. Again, this is up to us collecting evidence and being able to make an argument here to take this forward, which is what will happen if we take this to council. The chair will then present a document with all of our evidence for this and our recommendation to council for initiating impeachment proceedings. So we're now down to 17.6, so the requirements of investigations. So this is more of the details regarding passing, resolutions to reduce stipends or for disciplinary actions. We need to produce a detailed written briefing on the committee's discussions and our investigation that needs to be included in our meeting minutes and submitted to council. So basically, we need to create a briefing note to go along with any motions that we have passed, so that there is, I guess, that information there for anyone else who may want to review it, and so that we have collected or we have proof of the satisfactory evidence to enact one of these actions. So we need to have the sources of data that we've used to justify actions. This includes, I guess, like missing work reports or something along those lines. If we were to look and see that they're not uploaded, taking a timestamp screenshot or something to show that the date has been passed and it's not on the website, something along those lines. Any relevant society bylaws or policies the committee believes the executive officer has breached. So again, this would go down to R3, which is up above regarding our executive officers. If they were not consistently filling out their hours or whatnot, we would include that specific policy there for reference. Written summary of the testimony provided by an officer, if applicable. So if we were to bring in, one of the executive officers here and ask them why they hadn't submitted their work reports or why they're like empty or whatnot, we'd make a summary then of what kind of discussion we've had from them or what their answers were for us and include that as well. The findings and conclusions, so basically the endpoint of our discussion or deliberations, the answer that we kind of got to at the end, and then our recommendations regarding disciplinary actions, if applicable. So this would be where the censure part would come in again. And then we would also include any actions taken by the Committee on Delegated Authority, if applicable. So this would be where we would say in the briefing note that we contacted the finance coordinator to enact a stipend reduction. And then the last part here we have is appeals. So as I was saying earlier, if the executive officer believes due process was not provided before stipend reduction was enacted by our committee, they can submit an appeal of a decision at council. So if they appeal a decision, the chair of the Oversight Committee will submit the appeal to council for consideration and submit the written briefing of the committee's investigation to council. So the document we just talked about earlier, and withhold from directing the finance department to execute the stipend reduction until the appeal has been processed. So when it comes to council making a decision on the appeal, they may request additional information from us. So I'm assuming that means more of our, there's a time limit now? Uh-oh.
Are you this time limit on the Zoom? Oh, if you are not using your university account, then it gives you a 40-minute time limit for free, and then afterwards it makes you sign up for Zoom Premium.
Oh man.
Do you want me to create a new meeting and send it in the chat so we can transfer? Or
yeah, you can do
Okay.
that while I'm finishing talking on
Perfect,
this
sounds
there. So where were we? Yeah, so they can request additional information from us. What that looks like beyond the briefing notes, I'm not too sure. And again, it says here the decision of council is final. So whether they overturn the appeal or pass it, there's nothing else that can be done afterwards. We have responsibility of the chair's governance. This is longer than I was expecting. Ooh, that was 6. That was standing orders 18. Okay, quickly, responsibilities of the chair. They'll be responsible for requesting on behalf of the committee that an executive officer attends a committee meeting to to provide testimony. So coordinating with an executive officer, emailing them, and setting up, I guess, a time with them to come and meet with us. The chair is also the one that will direct the stipend reductions by the committee to the finance department. Just a side note here that they'll take effect on the executive officer stipend on the following pay period after we pass the resolution, so that they have enough time to submit an appeal to council. The chair will also submit all of our written briefings related to our investigations to council, as was mentioned earlier, and we'll also answer any questions at council meetings about the investigation that we have done as a committee, should there be an appeal. So for governance here, the committee is supposed to strive for consensus. So we'd like to ideally be passing things unanimously. What if we are unable to pass something unanimously, then we will make decisions by a simple majority vote. We're going to also be taking into consideration and respecting Indigenous forms of governance and recognize how often other forms of governance overrule Indigenous ways of knowing, and especially on occupied stolen territories. And when the committee takes into account Indigenous forms of governance, the committee shall consider other aspects and ways of knowing in order to properly support this decision-making process, which includes inviting Indigenous elders of the territories and asking for advice or support in the decision-making process, and finding ways to include Indigenous forms of governments, including talking circles, transparency process, and community engagement. And I think that is it for the standing order here. I guess before we start discussing that, we can just switch over to the other meeting then, right?
Yeah, that would be great. I put the link in the chat here, but I've also sent it to the emails if you can't use that link. So hopefully it work. I'm just going to leave to start that new meeting. If you need to take a break, use the bathroom, grab something to drink, take your time, and then we'll continue with our discussion.